There's no good way to admit you were the villain in your own story. But I guess if I'm going to tell this, I owe it to you to be honest. Brutally, uncomfortably honest. My husband Tyler is the kind of man people admire without even knowing why. He's not flashy, not loud. He's steady, reliable. The type of guy who never forgets to take the trash out or check the tire pressure on my car without being asked. The kind of guy who works 12-hour shifts in steel-toed boots and never complains, even when his back's screaming by the end of the week. We met when I was 23, fresh out of college, bartending part-time while trying to figure out what I actually wanted to do with my life. He was 27, a welder, already saving for a house. He knew who he was. I think that's what I loved about him the most in the beginning. That certainty. We got married fast. Within a year, everyone said we were rushing it, but I didn't care. He made me feel safe in a way no one ever had. And for a while, that was enough. But here's the thing, they don't tell you about marrying someone who gives you everything you need. Eventually, you start wondering about everything you want. And that's where I come in. The selfish one. The woman who had the world's most loyal husband and still managed to break his heart. It started with a gym membership. I'd gained some weight over the last year. Stress, mostly. I was working remotely as a freelance designer, which sounds relaxing until you realize it means sitting for 10 hours a day, alone, scrolling between Figma files and snack drawers. I felt sluggish, uninspired, so I signed up at a gym a few miles from the house, figuring it was time to get out of my rut. That's where I met Aiden. He wasn't even my trainer at first. I just noticed him, and you would have too. Tall, confident, built like he could carry the entire dumbbell rack without breaking a sweat. But he wasn't arrogant. He had this easy smile that made everyone in the room feel seen, including me. Eventually, he started saying hi, just casual stuff, asking about my workouts, offering form tips. We made small talk at the smoothie bar more often than made sense. And when I finally asked about personal training sessions, I told myself it was because I needed accountability. The truth, I liked the way he looked at me, like I was electric, like I wasn't just someone's wife. Tyler had no idea. He was working overtime, picking up Saturday shifts, missing dinners so we could finally start house hunting. He'd come home with grease on his jeans and a smile on his face like he wanted to be tired for me. And I'd be there, showered and glowing after a 2-hour training session where another man had his hands on my hips, correcting my deadlift form while his breath brushed my neck. I kept telling myself it was harmless. It wasn't. The first time Aiden touched me in a way that wasn't professional was a Tuesday night. We were the last two in the gym. He asked if I wanted to stay a little longer, stretch out, talk about my progress. It was dark out. The place was empty. And when he adjusted my posture on the mat, his hands lingered. I looked up. He looked down. And just like that, I didn't stop him. I didn't think about Tyler, not in that moment. I thought about how long it had been since someone made me feel wanted for something other than being dependable or supportive or low maintenance. I left the gym that night with my heart in my throat and a guilt I tried to shove down by the time I pulled into our driveway. Tyler was asleep on the couch, dinner untouched, still in his work clothes. That should have broken me. It didn't. I just walked past him and went upstairs. I know how this sounds. I know exactly who I am in this story. But you haven't heard the rest yet. And if you think this ends with a clean confession and a dramatic exit, you're wrong, because it got messier. Much, much messier. I thought I could stop. I really did. After that night at the gym, I told myself it was a one-time mistake, a slip, a moment of weakness. I spent the next morning trying to convince myself that it didn't mean anything, that it wasn't cheating if it didn't go too far, whatever that meant. But lies sound a lot like truth when you whisper them to yourself often enough. Tyler got up early, like always, made me coffee before I even got out of bed, kissed me on the forehead and said, "Don't forget we're meeting with the realtor after work today." I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt sick. He was building a future for us brick by brick, and I was lighting matches behind his back. That night, we saw a cute 3-bedroom house with a backyard and a crooked mailbox. Tyler was already imagining the deck he'd build and where we'd put a garden. He was glowing, hopeful, in love, and I was answering texts from Aiden when Tyler wasn't looking. It didn't take long before I stopped pretending. Aiden and I started seeing each other outside the gym. At first, it was after hours under the excuse of extra training sessions. Then it was coffee dates on the weekends when Tyler was working doubles. Eventually, I stopped lying about where I was altogether. I just said I needed space, time to think, creative energy, whatever phrase sounded believable that day. And Tyler, God, he believed me. He never once questioned me, never once checked my phone or asked where I'd been. He just kept working, kept dreaming, kept loving me with the kind of quiet, patient loyalty that makes you hate yourself for not being able to return it. I know what you're thinking. Why didn't you just leave? I asked myself the same question more times than I can count. But the truth is, I didn't want to lose the version of myself I was with Tyler, the woman he saw in me, kind, grounded, loyal. I didn't want to let her go, but I wasn't her anymore. I was the woman who sent flirty selfies to her trainer in the bathroom of her shared home, who erased message threads like scrubbing blood off the floor, who smiled at a man building her a life while daydreaming about another one ripping her clothes off in the back seat of his car. I was someone I didn't recognize, and someone I couldn't stop being. The tipping point came one Friday night. Tyler came home later than usual, traffic on the 5, he said, and found me sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine and freshly done hair. He smiled and asked if we were going out. I told him I already had dinner with a friend. He didn't ask which one. Instead, he walked over, leaned down, and kissed the top of my head. "You look beautiful," he said. I froze, because just 3 hours earlier, Aiden had said the exact same thing, except it wasn't followed by a kiss on the forehead. It was whispered into my ear with his hands tangled in my shirt, his breath hot against my collarbone, and all I could think was, how did I get here? I wanted to cry, scream, confess, something. Instead, I smiled and said, "Thanks. How was work?" And just like that, I swallowed it all again. A week later, it all blew up, but not the way you'd expect. Tyler didn't find a message or walk in on something or catch a scent on my clothes. No, the one who figured it out was his sister, Megan. We'd never been close, but she always had a sixth sense about me. She showed up at the gym one morning to drop off her boyfriend's lunch and saw me in the parking lot with Aiden. Too close, too comfortable. She didn't confront me there. She waited. That night, she called me. "I'm only going to ask this once," she said. "Is there something going on with you and your trainer?" My blood turned to ice. I paced the bedroom with the door locked and my heart about to burst out of my chest. "Megan, I'm not judging," she cut in. "I just need to know, because if I can tell, it's only a matter of time before Tyler does too." I didn't say anything, which, in hindsight, said everything. She sighed, long and heavy. "He doesn't deserve this, you know." "I know," I whispered. "I'm giving you a chance to fix this before it breaks him." Click. She hung up. I stood in that room, staring at my reflection in the mirror, hair done, nails perfect, ring on my finger, looking like a woman who had it all, and feeling like a complete fraud because time was running out. And I knew, sooner or later, Tyler was going to find out. The night everything came crashing down didn't start with a fight. It started with dinner. Tyler came home early, which almost never happened, holding a bag of takeout from the Little Thai place downtown. My favorite. He looked tired, but there was something else in his face too. Something unreadable. I remember thinking it was just another long day, another 12 hours at the plant that left him drained. But when he set the food down and didn't take his boots off, my stomach twisted. "Can we talk?" he asked. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. I forced a laugh. "That sounds serious." "It is." He didn't sit down. He didn't smile. He just stood there, still in his work jacket, hands in his pockets like he didn't trust them not to shake. "Megan came by today," he said quietly. "Said she saw you at the gym." My throat went dry. She said she saw you kissing someone." The words dropped like a hammer, and just like that, everything inside me broke. I tried to speak, tried to find the right combination of syllables that could undo what was already done, but Tyler just looked at me, and I saw something worse than anger in his eyes. I saw heartbreak, disbelief. "Please tell me she's wrong," he said. I didn't answer. His jaw flexed once, twice. Then he nodded, slow and heavy, like he'd already known before he ever asked. "How long?" "Tyler, How long?" I swallowed hard. "A few months." He laughed once, sharp and bitter. "A few months, that's great. That's really great." "Tyler, I never wanted—" He held up his hand. Don't say you didn't mean to. Don't say you were lonely. I've worked 60 hours a week for us, for you. And every time I thought I was getting closer to giving you the life you wanted, you were out there giving yourself to someone else." His voice cracked on that last word. I'd never seen him cry before. Tyler wasn't the kind of man who broke down. He was the one who held everything up, until now. "Was it worth it?" he asked quietly. "All of this?" I couldn't answer, because no matter what I said, it wouldn't make sense. Not to him, not even to me. He walked past me without another word, straight to the bedroom. I heard drawers open, hangers rattle, and then the zipper of his duffel bag. I followed him down the hall, desperate, pathetic. "Tyler, please, just listen." He turned to me, eyes red. "I listened for years, Avery. You just stopped talking." He picked up the bag, brushed past me again, and was gone before I could say another word. The front door slammed, then silence. I don't remember how long I stood there. Maybe 5 minutes, maybe an hour. The house felt colder than I'd ever known it. The food sat untouched on the table. And for the first time since this whole thing started, I realized I'd actually done it. I'd ruined everything. I didn't go to Aiden. I didn't call him, because suddenly none of it felt real anymore. It wasn't love. It wasn't passion. It was an escape hatch I'd mistaken for a new beginning, and I'd pulled it hard. The next few weeks blurred together. Tyler stayed with a friend from work. He didn't answer my calls. Not once. He just disappeared into his routine the same way he'd built it. Disciplined, focused, unshakable. Except this time, I wasn't part of it. Aiden tried reaching out. I ignored him. The thought of seeing him made me sick. Every touch, every look, every word we'd shared suddenly felt hollow, like he was just a reflection of everything I'd been missing. Not a person I actually wanted. One night, I showed up at the plant parking lot after his shift. Tyler came out, covered in dust, eyes sunken with exhaustion. He saw me leaning against my car. He didn't stop walking. "Please," I said, "just hear me out." He did stop then, but he didn't come closer. "You said everything you needed to." "I was lost," I said, tears catching in my throat. "And you were gone all the time, and—" He cut me off. "You think I like that? You think I wanted to work 12 hours a day? I did it because I thought it made you happy." "I know." "No, you don't," he said, voice breaking, "because if you did, you never would have done what you did." We stood there in the quiet hum of the parking lot lights. Two people who used to be everything to each other and now couldn't even look one another in the eye. Finally, he exhaled. "You don't get to say sorry, you get to live with it." And then he got in his truck and drove away. That was the last time I saw him for months, until one morning a letter showed up at my door. No return address, just my name in his handwriting. It wasn't long, just a few lines. "I'm not angry anymore. I just hope one day you understand what real love costs." T. I sat on the floor, letter shaking in my hands, and cried until I couldn't anymore, because for the first time, I finally did understand. People think the worst part of losing someone is the moment they walk away. It's not. It's the morning after, when you wake up and instinctively reach for them, only to remember they're not coming back. It's the empty spot at the dinner table, the unused coffee mug, the quiet. It's realizing they're still alive, but you no longer have access to their world. That's what losing Tyler felt like. 100 tiny deaths every day. I didn't try to date after he left, not because I was punishing myself, though maybe I was, but because no one felt real anymore. I'd had passion, I'd had safety, I'd broken both. Aiden called a few more times, left a voicemail saying, "You can't ignore me forever." But I could, and I did, because I finally saw the truth. I hadn't fallen for him. I'd fallen for how he made me feel about myself, desired, noticed. But that's not love. That's fantasy. And fantasies dissolve in the harsh light of consequences. Aiden wasn't the villain. Neither was Tyler. It was me. I was the one who folded under the pressure of routine, mistook attention for affection, and betrayed a man who would have done anything for me. And that's not something you bounce back from with a new haircut and a fresh start. I started therapy, took long walks without my phone, turned down client projects that drained me. I deleted every photo of Tyler and me, not out of anger, but out of respect. He deserved to move on without being tethered to a version of me that no longer existed. I didn't expect forgiveness. I didn't expect closure. I just wanted to understand why I let myself become someone I used to judge. My therapist said something once that stuck with me. You made a selfish decision in a moment of emotional starvation. That doesn't make it okay, but it makes it explainable. And maybe that's all we can ever really hope for, to understand the wreckage we've caused, even if we can't rebuild what we destroyed. One afternoon, 6 months after the letter, I saw Tyler again. I was at the farmer's market picking up vegetables for a recipe I probably wouldn't finish. He was standing at the other end of the row with a woman I didn't recognize. She was tall, soft-spoken, pretty in a natural, peaceful way. They weren't touching, but he laughed at something she said, and it was the first time I'd seen his shoulders relaxed in what felt like years. He saw me, just for a second. Our eyes met, and for a moment I thought he might walk over. He didn't. He just nodded once, polite, distant, then turned back to her and kept walking. And honestly, I'm glad he did. There's no twist ending here. No dramatic reconciliation or surprise second chance. Just the truth. I lost a good man because I didn't know how to value what didn't constantly demand to be noticed. And now I live with that. Not bitter, not broken, just honest. I still go to the gym. Different one now. I don't look for attention anymore. I look for peace. And I finally understand that the quiet kind of love, the kind that shows up with dinner and takes off its boots before stepping into the house, that's the kind you don't trade away, no matter how loud the rest of the world gets.